All right, everybody, welcome back. Hey, really quick, are you guys okay if I call an audible right now? So I am so far behind where I was supposed to be, and I had all these stories, and they went longer, and I got excited, and you guys are so much fun. So what the plan is I'm gonna go from 4 till 6 right now. We're gonna take a dinner break from 6 till 8, and then you don't have to come back if you want, but from 8 till 9, I'm gonna do a really cool special session I'm excited for. I'm actually gonna have our resident friendly giant. Is he in the room? Where's Nick at? He's not in the room right now. Never mind, we're canceling the session. Just kidding. We're gonna have Nick actually come on stage after dinner, and I'm gonna do this. I have this idea. It may be horrible, it may be amazing. I have no idea. You gotta show up to find out. Kind of like the spot coaching with him on also I'm talking about in the next 2 hours. And there he is. Finally, he showed. Just kidding. It's gonna be fun. We're actually gonna tell his story and behind the scenes of his story. And then I've been watching really closely, and I'll tell you why I've had such a vested interest in this journey over the last year or so. But I'm gonna basically, after we talk about the story, I'm gonna take him where he's at right now and coach him on the stuff that I'm seeing, the positives and negatives. And I want you guys here for that because a lot of us can relate back to what you guys are doing as well. So he, in proxy for you, will be getting coached by me, and I think you'll get some really cool things from it. So we'll be doing that from 8 till 9 o'clock tonight. It's kind of the game plan, and that's the plan. So right now they're trying to make sure the hotel's not going to kick us out and people can hang out. So that's the game plan. If you guys come back, you don't feel obligated unless you want to like have your mind blown. So, whatever. There's nothing else to do here in this town anyway, so might as well hang out here. I'm just kidding. I love it here. All right. So the dinner break, the goal is to go from 6 till 8 as long as I get done in the next 2 hours, which this session's got a lot of stuff, so I have no idea that's actually possible. Anyway. My baby's crying. I love that sound. All right, so we're moving into session number 3. I'm supposed to be on session 5 right now, I think, so that's how far behind we are. Session number 3, I'm gonna start talking about distribution. We talked about it a little bit with understanding your lists and things like that, but I wanna start going even deeper into this concept because everything we're doing is gonna start building on everything we covered earlier today, right? So every step gets a little step deeper and deeper into the pool, and tomorrow by the end of the day, we're gonna get like super deep. Who wants to get in the deep end of the pool? So like Dream 100 is like Internet Marketing 101. We're gonna get to like the second phase of Dream 100, which we internally call the Syndicate, which is like 3 or 401, and we're talking about tomorrow night. It's gonna be so much fun. I've never talked about this stuff before because there's never been an audience I could like share it with. I'd be talking about it and everyone's like, what are you talking about? But now we can all hang out on the same level. So tomorrow night it's gonna keep getting deeper and everything's stacking and layering upon itself. So hope you guys understand that. All right, so the first thing I want you to understand in distribution, I'm gonna show a really quick video clip. I want to share with you guys first, so it'll kind of set up what I want to talk about. I showed this to you guys at Funnel Hacking Live as well, but and some of you guys know I'm not the biggest Gary Vee fan anymore because he's kind of a jerk. I don't know. Did I say that? I did. I'm sorry. No, he's a smart guy. Operation Barry Gary is in full effect. There will be a time in the near future for every Gary Vee video you will see 1,200 of Russells. It's going to be amazing. Now, just kidding. Anyway. All right, we should start the session over. Anyway, no, I do respect Gary. Of the things he's said, this is probably one of the best, and it's powerful, and it'll set up everything we're talking about right now. So I'm going to show you guys this clip really quick, and then we'll come and dive back into it. So here we go.
I think this is the television in 1965. I know a lot of you are like, whatever, just really pay attention to this because this might be one of the better things I say. This is the television in 1965. And the TVs, they're the radio, right? So and if you go and study, so what I do well for somebody who's a student, the one thing I do study is history, because history loves to repeat its fucking self, right? And so if you go look at the brands, the beer brands that were romantic about staying on the radio because that's how they did it, and didn't shift to television, while things like Miller Lite that nobody's ever heard of went TV only and became the brands. If you look at TV 1965, that's what I think this is. And I think YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook are ABC, NBC, and CBS. So do I think, and then I think within it, is MASH and Happy Days. Got it? So that's the system. So do I think over time, ESPN comes around and HBO comes? I do. There will be more channels built on this platform and there'll be more competition. That's what's happening And so what you need to do is, for your business, figure out the channels where you could be the star of that network.
All right, let's give Gary Vee a huge round of applause. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of diagram this out for you guys. So, because if we can understand the distribution channels, this game becomes really fun, right? So if you look at this, what Gary said is that the TV, there's your TV, 3 channels, is the cell phone of today, right? And then if you look at this one level deeper, here's the TV again. Over here on the channels, these are ABC, CBS, and NBC. There's your things. This is the equivalent to the apps over here, right? Now, before I show the next level, I want to tell you guys a really fascinating story. So I met Tony Robbins initially over 10 years ago, and I met him, it was probably 2009. Anyway, it was a time when like everything was shifting and changing, right? And his business started struggling because he had focused solely on like TV at the time. And I remember my very first meeting with him, we were sitting there, and he said, what's interesting, he said, if you look at my business, he said, when I came out and I became Tony Robbins, he's like, there were 3 channels on TV. There was ABC, CBS, and NBC. And he's like, if you flipped on any channel at night, my infomercial was on all of them. It wasn't hard. There were 3 channels. That's all I had to do. That's all I had to cover, right? How many of you guys remember watching Tony Robbins infomercials back then? Right? He was everywhere. And he was like, that's why he's still to this day is one of the most recognizable faces of all time, because he was everywhere. Like you couldn't go anywhere without seeing Tony's face, right? And so that was what was happening. Now what happened is for him, it went from 3 channels, all of a sudden like this pesky thing, Fox came out, and then other ones came out, and then all of a sudden cable came out, and media got splintered across like 10,000 cable channels, right? And so Tony told me, he's like, I was trying to go on and buy ads on this channel, like for whatever reason, this one didn't convert, and this one, like before they all kind of worked because they're like, everyone was grouped together and the numbers made sense, but now it didn't work on this channel, and this channel, and this channel, and this one got too expensive, and all these things, and like all of a sudden everything started shifting. And so when I came and met Tony, like that's the phase he was in. He was like, we're struggling, like everything's happening, no longer are we able to be profitable. And that's when he started learning about us internet nerds and the internet stuff. And if you look at the last 10 years, Tony went from that phase to now they're just crushing it and killing it, right? But it was because of this that he had to make the shift, because that was all that was happening. And so what Gary said that's fascinating, if you look at that right now, is that for all of us, right? It's understanding like that's the TV, this is our phone, this is the chance. These apps are channels. And you go down here, inside the app, you click on it, and then there's your show. Here's your platform to be on the stage. There's someone on stage, okay? So that's kind of, this is the thing that's happened. And like he said, and in fact, you're seeing it now, but for most of you guys on your phones, right? In fact, I have, on iPhones, you can like group things together. I literally have a tab that's called Conversation Domination, and in there are all of the apps that I'm trying to dominate. So my Facebook app, my Instagram, my Twitter, my LinkedIn, like all the different apps that I actually have my dream audience on there, I have them all in one group. So when I wake up in the morning, and I'm like, okay, I need to go follow my Dream 100, see what they're doing on every channel. I click on the Conversation Domination thing, it pops open. I have my 9 little apps there, and those are my channels, right? And I go and I click on each one, I scroll through, see what the Dream 100 doing, going through it, and that's what I'm looking at every single day. Right, is what's happening, all the channels, and I go see what the shows are happening in each of the channels, right? My Dream 100 shows in each channel that's happening, okay? So that's the first thing to kind of understand here. Let's see. All right, now, what I want to pitch you guys all on right now, and some of you guys are going to fight me on this because you're like, oh, Russell, I want to drive traffic. I don't want to like have my own show. I want to pitch you on one of the most important things you guys could all do in your business right now is to actually focus on starting your own show. And some of you are thinking, well, Russell, if I start my own Facebook show or my own Instagram show or my own podcast or whatever, I don't own that traffic, right? I'm on somebody else's network. And the answer is yes, that's true, okay? But regardless, it's still a really, really smart thing to do. So there's my little doodle. Can you pull the slides back up real quick? This is the doodled out version of what I just doodled for you guys. Isn't that, I doodle stuff and I scribble it out and then my team makes it look amazing. I'm like, oh yeah, that is what I wrote. That looks so good. Someone asked me like how I got so good at doodling images for my books. I'm like, you honestly think I know how to do that? I found the who knew the how, and then they did it for me, right? All right, so next phase. So your first distribution channel is gonna be your own show, okay? And at Funnel Hacking Live, I talked about this a little bit, and I did a presentation called Conversation Domination, right? And what's interesting is that presentation of all the ones I gave was probably the least well received. I think part of it because I was like, you guys should be on every channel, being all present. So anywhere you go, people looking at you, and everyone's kind of stressed out like, oh, Russell, I don't want to be you. I don't want to be on every single channel, right? And the more I thought about it, the more I think that I was actually wrong in that. I think there's a time when you should get to that, and actually tomorrow night, if we get to the advanced stuff, I'll go into that. There's a time and a phase where you should be omnipresent on every single channel, but initially you shouldn't be. If you try to launch your own podcast, your own Facebook show, your own YouTube channel, and all these things at once, I promise you'll fail. Even with me and my entire team of people, we're still not actively destroying every single channel. We're successful in 2 or 3 of them, and we're adding more on, but it's not something that you should just dive into overnight. It should come down to like focus on the channel you like the most. So the question is for you guys, like, what channel should I focus on the most? And I would argue the one you should do the most is the one that you're most comfortable with, the one that you spend the most time in, right? I remember for me, when I first got Instagram, I remember logging in, I was so confused by Instagram. How many of you guys were confused the first time? I was used to Facebook, and it was similar, but it was different. And like the picture, the headline was under the picture instead of above it. And I was like, why? Like I was so confused on how it connected. I couldn't figure it out, and I didn't like it for a long time. But I kept using Instagram, kept using it, and eventually I became more and more comfortable with it. Now, like by far, it's my favorite channel to publish on, by far. That's why Instagram, everything's like, I'm just so used to it. I love it. I feel comfortable with it. And for me, that's my favorite one, right? For some of you guys, it's gonna be different. Some of you guys may hate Instagram. Like, you never, like, how many of you guys like don't have the app, and if you do have it, you've never actually logged into it before ever? Okay? Don't launch an Instagram show if that's you. How many guys is Facebook, like, I love Facebook, I'm scrolling, they're doing stuff, like I can do Facebook Lives, like that's the platform you play in and you'd enjoy it the most. Okay? How many guys more is like podcasting, like I love listening to podcasts, and you just know like, man, if I'm ever doing anything, it's gonna be podcasts. Right? When you think it through, like, do a platform that you love, but there's a huge argument for having your own show. And I will continue over this presentation to give you more and more reasons to believe it and things like that. But one of the biggest things comes back to the Arsenio Hall thing we talked about, right? If I want to work with my Dream 100, and I want to do a deal with any of the Dream 100, and I come to them and I'm like, hey, Dream 100 person who's amazing, I watch you, I follow you, is there a way you can promote my thing? It's hard. They're going to say no. It doesn't open up any doors. But if you come to your Dream 100 and you're like, how do I serve this person? What most people on your Dream 100 are looking for is a platform, right? People didn't call Arsenio Hall back because he didn't have a platform, right? People take my calls now because I have a platform. I could call Tony and be like, hey, you're launching your new book, man. Do you want to be on the show? He'd be like, yes, because I know Russell's got a platform, okay? Regardless if we had a relationship or not, the platform is what makes people return your calls. Okay? So if you don't have your own show, it gets really, really difficult to do those kind of things. You don't have to do it. You can go and just buy ads all the time, but if you want to earn your way, and if you want to open up relationships, you want to do those other things, having your own show is the most important thing you can do. Okay? When we launched ClickFunnels, one of the rules we made is that as ClickFunnels, we weren't going to promote any outside companies or other products and things like that, right? And so we couldn't do it. So when Dave initially was going in, his job was to go find Dream 100s and get them to promote our stuff. Everyone's like, well, I can't, like, can you do something for me? And he's like, I can't do anything for you. Like, we can't promote your stuff. Russell's podcast is just him. Like, we didn't have anything we could leverage to like help, right? And so Dave had this great idea. He was like, what if I launched my own podcast called Funnel Hacker TV? And what's cool, or Funnel Hacker Radio, is like, I'll interview people. And that way, when I meet someone, like, hey, can I have you on the show? And they're like, oh, cool. And then the person's on the show, Dave has a chance to interview him for 30 minutes or so, build a relationship, build a rapport, get to know that person. And all of a sudden, like, they have a relationship. And now amazing things happen because of it. Okay, one of the best ways to build these relationships with your Dream 100 is to give them a platform. Start your own show because you can give people a platform. Do you guys understand that? Okay? To work your way in, there's nothing more powerful than that. Okay? It's crazy. Like, you'd be shocked at the people you can contact and get a hold of who will return your call just by saying you have a show. Now, what's crazy about a lot of shows, like if you're on Facebook and you have like 3 followers, people like, if I do Facebook Live, you only have 3 followers. Some platforms like podcasts are hidden, right? How many people know how many podcast listeners I have in every episode? Only John does, because he looks at the stats. How many of you guys know how many people listen to Dave's podcast? Only he knows, apparently. Not very many people, right? Okay? So it's powerful. When Funnel Hacker Radio launched, we had no one listening to it, but he still did deals and got people on, right? Because you have a show. And so what's cool about it is that you don't have to have like a big, huge thing. All you have to do is like have a show and invite people on, and it'll open up conversations, dialogues, get people on your show. And some people may say no, but it's one of the easiest ways to infiltrate the Dream 100. And you get to know them. And after you get one person on your show, it's so easy to be like, oh, so-and-so's on my show. Do you want to be on my show too? Like, oh, sure. And you start building your way into these networks and start getting to know people because you're providing value to them. You're giving them a platform to share their stories. Okay, so it's powerful. There's so many amazing benefits. Okay, but I do think that everybody should have a show. It's part of your traffic strategy because it opens up all the doors. Okay. All right, so what I want to do right now for the next little bit is I want to go a little expert secrets on you guys, if you're okay with that. Because I know what happens for some of you guys. As I say that, you have to have your own show. You have to start publishing. You're kind of freaking out right now, right? How many guys in your gut are just like, I'm gonna go walk out during the session, I don't really wanna do that? Okay, yes, one person that's honest, thank you. Okay, so the first time I talked about this was at Funnel Hacking Live #2, and I was on stage, and when I told everybody, I said, look, if you wanna be successful in this business, you have to start publishing. And there was this guy in the audience, and on the way over to the audience, he's like, I will do anything that Russell Brunson says. I will follow him to the end of the moon, but the one thing I will not do, no matter what he says at any cost, is I refuse to publish anything ever. I do not want to do that. It sounds like pain. I don't want to do it. Guess who that human being was? Mr. Stephen Larson. And then he gets off and he's like, Russell just talked. I was like, I don't want to. I hate Russell. He's so angry, but he's probably right. Dang it. Caitlin said, do what Russell says like 40 times and she's rich now. Like I should probably do it, but I don't want to. And he fought me. And finally he's like, fine, I'll do it. And he launches this podcast and he does it for how long? A year, 2, I don't even know how long. 2 years now doing this podcast. Okay, last January, he decides to leave ClickFunnels and spread his wings and go off on his own because that's what entrepreneurs do, right? And was he scared? No, because he had this following. He had an audience. He had people who were listening to him. He had people who were ready to give him money the second he was ready for it, okay? So I want you guys thinking about that, like it's time to start publishing because when you do that, it builds this audience, it builds people, it builds a following, okay? It's gonna serve you not just today, but it's gonna serve you long term, okay? It's gonna open up doors, it's gonna open up connections, it's gonna give you the ability to connect with the people on your Dream 100 you need to get to know, okay? There's no better way to do it than to have your own show, okay? It's amazing. All right. Now, the next part of the process with your own show is it's gonna help you guys to become the actual attractive character. I'm pretty sure that the only concept I've talked about in all 3 books is this. You think it's important? Russell, I don't wanna be an attractive character. Okay, oh, you must hate money, cool. Well, if you hate money, there's an Infusionsoft event happening down the road. You guys can go over there. Oh. I'm just kidding, I'm so sorry. I know we got anyway, I'm just teasing. I didn't say that. All right, so this is hugely, hugely important, okay? For so many reasons. So I'm gonna start doodling this to kind of walk you through this process that'll help you guys, okay? So the first thing I want you to understand is right now, this is you guys, okay? Pre-publishing, right? And over here is where you want to go. This is a little flag right here, say result. Okay? And so the goal, my guess is your journey is one of 2 things. Either you were on this path and you were trying to figure out how to get a result, right? Or number 2, you've already gotten this result and you want to help other people get that result as well, right? Okay? All of us are in some phase of that. Typically, in our lives, most of us will go through a phase, and I call it the growth phase, right? You learn about something and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing in the world. And you start geeking out, you start learning, you start going through this time of growth, right? And typically during this time of growth, you're learning and you're educating, you're becoming a different person, all this stuff happens, and then you achieve that result. And what happens when you achieve the result? You realize that the joy is in this whole journey, right? And you're like, crap, I got the thing I wanted, I don't feel fulfilled, I had way more fun like going through the journey. Now what do I do with my life? Right? Have you guys ever experienced that before? Right? The joy is in the journey, you achieve the result, and you're like, dang, that was it? Crap, now what am I gonna do with my life? And all of a sudden you realize, I've grown to a certain level, but if I wanna continue to grow my life, it's not about me growing more, it's about me contributing to others and helping them go on this path. So typically for all of you guys in this room, either you're on this path right now of you trying to get the result, right? You're trying to lose weight, you're trying to make money, you're trying to learn the stock market, you're trying to do whatever the thing is, or you've already achieved the result, now you're coming back down here and saying, I wanna take other people on this path as well. Okay, the first time you go is growth, the second time and beyond is contribution, okay? So we're going on this journey, okay? Now, I wish, if I could go back in time to 15 years ago, I wish that somebody would have grabbed me and said, Russell, you gotta document this journey. Everything that's been happening, I didn't. But what's cool is we did the ClickFunnels Startup Story event last weekend in Provo, and for Andrew Warner, before he interviewed me, I was like, I want to go I know he does a lot of research, but I was like, I think it'd be really fun to give him all the data. So I went back to a website. It's called archive.org. It's the Wayback Machine. Anyone ever use this thing? You type in a website and it goes back in time and shows you snapshots of the website from the beginning of time till now. And so I went through my domains, every domain I've ever owned. I plugged them into the Wayback Machine, and I found all of the funnels I built from the beginning of time till now in chronological order. Here's the first one, the second one. Ended up over 150 funnels I launched, you guys, before ClickFunnels. That crazy? In fact, next Tuesday I'm doing a presentation. I'm actually gonna go through one by one and like in chronological order and tell you what I was thinking, like why. Anyway, it's gonna be really fun, right? But so I have this cool thing now to document the journey, but man, I wish that I would have been documenting the journey this whole time. Can you imagine that? How many of you guys like to see Russell when I was 21 years old, sitting there the very first time in an event, seeing somebody run to the back of the room and they have me document my thoughts of like, I went to this internet marketing thing, I thought I was gonna learn internet nerdy stuff, and this guy got on stage and he sold, and $68,000 worth of people ran the back room and bought. And the next guy got up and I'm telling this whole thing, right? And then how many of you guys would love to hear the story? The very first time I got on stage in front of a room like this, I sold like crazy and nobody bought. And I was so embarrassed, I ran out to my hotel room and I hid for 3 days because I didn't want any of the attendees or the other speakers to see me. And I literally sat there eating Haagen-Dazs ice cream and coconut shrimp for 3 days while I watched X-Men movies. How many of you guys want to hear that story and see it, see the pain I was going through? Okay, I didn't document any of that. So I can tell the stories now, but man, how powerful it would have been for my audience to come on that journey with me. Okay, and what's scary for us is like, as we're going through it, there's a lot of pain, and you're like, I don't want to tell people about my failures. But man, looking back now, I promise you, people will follow you. It's interesting, Natalie Hodson told me this, and she may have even mentioned it from Hacking Live, but she said, Russell, the reason why people don't care that you're making crap tons of money right now is because they know how much you struggled to get there. Because they saw the downs, they celebrate the successes with you. If they just see the successes, they despise you, they hate you, they're angry because of it, right? Because you guys know that I script so many times, I've gone through so much pain, you're okay with it, right? So it's powerful, yes, okay? I'm saying next, I want you guys to think about that, like, be okay sharing those things that are scary, okay? Do you think Natalie Hodson was super excited to post the pictures of her peeing her pants? No. Do you think she was excited 4 months later when she became a millionaire? Yes, right? Because she shared those things. So that's the first thing. So a couple things. The first thing that, and this is another Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary's giving us 2 things, darn him. All right, the first thing that Gary said is it's not about creating content. It's about documenting the journey, okay? So you're documenting the journey of you going on this path the first time, or the journey of you taking people on this path. That is the thing that's fascinating. That's what gets people to follow you, that gets people to listen in, gets people to connect with you, is the documentation of the journey. Okay, that's the first reason why we're doing this. Now, how do we document the journey? Okay, it's all gonna depend because it's gonna be different for every one of you guys. Every one of you guys have a different modality of what you like to do. How many of you guys in here like writing stuff? Like you feel comfortable, like you can sit down and write a blog post for like an hour and like feel good about it. How many of my writers in the room? All right, yeah. So for all of my writers in the room, you are gonna be launching a blog. As of today, I would recommend going to medium.com to launch your blog. Go on that platform and use it. It might be different in the future, but for right now, Medium is the best platform to launch your blog. Much better than starting your own WordPress blog somewhere else. Medium already has an audience, already has things. If you write good stuff, it'll get picked up, it'll get followed. You will get insane amounts of traffic. I have a friend right now that every time he posts an article to medium.com, gets 5,000 opt-ins. Opt-ins. Every time he writes a post, okay? Like it's worth it. And if you start documenting this journey every single day for an entire year, you document the journey on a blog like that, I promise you, by the time you're done, all your financial fears will be gone. I told Stephen mentioned this the other day. How many of you guys are going through the One Funnel Away challenge right now? Yeah. I said something I didn't remember, and Stephen messaged me. He's like, dude, you just said the most amazing thing. I'm like, cool. What did I say? He's like, you said you've promised every single person in the challenge that if they documented every single day for an entire year, by the time the year was over, all their financial problems would be gone. I was like, I believe that, 100%. Okay? How many of you guys know ConvertKit? ConvertKit's, they're an email autoresponder. The founder lives in Boise. His name's Nathan. Nathan Barry, he actually is an amazing designer. I tried to hire him as a designer, and anyway, long story, wasn't able to do it. He launched ConvertKit, and he's grown this thing up. And what's interesting is that when Nathan first started learning about this stuff, he said, I'm gonna do a challenge. I'm gonna challenge myself, it's scary. I'm gonna blog every single day for an entire year, right? That's a big commitment. He's like, I'm just gonna do it for an entire year. And he started this thing, started documenting journey for an entire year. Every single day, woke up in the morning, did a blog post. Woke up in the morning, did a blog post. And after a year, he was financially free. Okay, there's something magic about that. You guys understanding, okay? So for those who are my writers, you need to start blogging. And I want you to commit to me to a year, publish every single day for a year. How many of you guys can commit to me to every single day for a year? How many of you guys would do it if financial freedom was guaranteed on the other side of it? Okay, I will commit to you that. Okay, if you do every single day for a year, you will have that at the end of it. I promise you that. You will find your voice, you will attract the right people, and everything will change for you. Okay, put me to the test, I dare you. And come back in a year from now and be like, Russell, I'm still broke. Guarantee it's not gonna happen. Guarantee it, all right? Okay, how many of you guys are like, writing sucks, Russell, I'd rather die than write words. That's like, what? Why would you do that? Okay, I understand that. Writing is hard. All right, so how many of you guys I could though get behind a microphone and just talk every day. That'd be really, really fun. How many of you guys are my talkers? All right. So my talkers, you're starting a podcast. Congratulations, you are officially now podcast hosts. Okay, you're starting a podcast. What's the new podcast app? Anchor. Okay, if you can't do a podcast, there's an app called Anchor. It's like free or like $1. I don't even know. Either way, it's worth it's amazing, right? And you can literally just click a button, you record a podcast, you click a button, it throws on your intro, your exit, uploads to iTunes, and you're live. Like that easy. Okay, there's no excuse, I don't know how to do a podcast. Like, okay. Where's your sister at? Is she here today? Okay, or just give her money. Okay, stand up real quick. This is what she does for a living now. You record a podcast, you send it to her, and then she makes it magically live on the internet. Okay? My brother does that for me. Like, I have no idea how to, like, people are like, how do you get a podcast on iTunes? I'm like, I click record on my phone, I talk into it, and then when I'm done, I stop, and I click a button, I say email to Scott, and then it goes to Scott. And the next day, it's magically on iTunes. They're like, well, what microphone do you use? I'm like, the one on my phone, the little, like, line there, I just talk into it. Like, the sound quality's so good. I'm like, are you serious? I'm in my car every single time. You can hear the engine like, the sound quality's horrible. But I've been doing it consistently, man, 7 years now. Okay? But I had to find something I knew that I could do. When I started my podcast, I was like, I know that I'm not going to write every single day. That's hard for me. I know that I'm not going to do videos every day, but like every single day I get in the car and I drive to work. Okay, and so I'm gonna do something simple. I'm just gonna have my phone, I'm just gonna talk, because I know if it's gonna be an interview show, it's gonna be hard for me to like get the mics and things and line up speakers, and it's just gonna be hard. I want to do something I know I can actually do every single day. Every day I'm in the car, I'm just gonna do it in the car. So those who've been following for a long time, it used to be called marketing in your car. It was just me driving to the office, talking about whatever. And it was like, it's funny looking back on it now. Poor Julie had it, like when she first started working with us, she listened to all like 600 episodes in a weekend. And can you imagine that being in my brain for an entire weekend? Like that would be painful. Anyway, but like it started right after our company collapsed. I laid off like 80 people. I've shrunk from like a 20,000 square foot office to 2,000 square foot office. I was at the brink of bankruptcy. I was trying to figure out how not to go to jail and get shut down by the IRS and all sorts of things. And I was like, this is a good time to start a podcast. I'm gonna document my journey. Why was I thinking that? I don't know. I'm so grateful I did, because I started documenting this process. And if you listen to it, it was funny. Julie's messaged me that weekend. She's like, you literally just said you have this idea you think is going to change the world, and it's this thing you're creating called ClickFunnels. And she's like, you literally just said that you think growing a company over $10 million is the stupidest thing you've ever heard of. She's like, you literally just said, and like all these things. I'm like, I said that? Like it's the most hilarious thing in the world. But what's amazing now is 5 years later, I have people that come to my world and they like, listen to something and they start listening, and then what happens? They start binge listening. They go back to the very beginning, listen to episode number 1. They go through this whole thing, and all of a sudden I see them in an event, and they're like, dude, Russell, I went on this journey with you. Like, oh my gosh, like I thought you were the stuck up annoying kid, but like I saw the journey and you went through a hard time, and like I feel like I'm connected to you, and every single day I'm hearing you, and like I'm on the treadmill, and like my intimate times where I'm like just nothing else, like you're in my mind talking, I'm hearing your voice, I'm hearing your language patterns. I actually believe this is possible now because I've listened to you every single day for the last week of my life. Now what's my ability like to serve that person? It's way different, right? Okay, because I was able and I was willing to document the journey. Okay, now this is the other funny thing. If you guys, the very first funnel hacking live that Garrett White ever spoke at, or the very first one ever, he came and spoke at it. And I didn't find the clip for this, but it was so funny. I quote it in the Expert Seekers book. He was talking about this. He's like, when you first start, you're gonna suck. He said, but the good news is, as you continue to do this, eventually you'll suck less. And if you continue to, eventually you'll suck less so little, you'll actually become good. Okay, and it's true, like first thing, when you guys first start publishing, you're gonna be horrible at it. But the good news is nobody's actually listening to you at first. You're gonna be like, Russell, no one's listening. I'm like, that's the good thing. I have no followers. Like, perfect, that's the best time to start. You start with a whole bunch of people, it stresses you out, right? Start when no one's listening, then it's not that bad. This is the funniest thing. Steve and I were sitting there one day, and this is like 400 episodes in or whatever, and he's talking, he's like, you know what's weird? He's like, the first like 40, 45 episodes of your podcast, you were horrible. He's like, but somewhere around 45, 46, like you started getting the rhythm, and then it got good, and then it got really good. I was like, man, I am so glad that I didn't stop, okay? In fact, what's fascinating is that I didn't even know how to check my podcast stats until after episode like 400 or 500. Like I had no idea. And I'm so grateful I had no idea how many people were listening, because if I had known that no one was listening, I probably would have stopped. Isn't that scary? But because I had no idea how many people were listening, I was like, someone's probably listening. They keep going. I kept going, and eventually people started listening, and they started following, and they started sharing it, and started growing, okay? And I found my voice. Now I can stand up here in front of you guys with like doodles as notes and talk for 3 days because I found my voice. I've told these stories a billion times, right? That they're over and over and over and over and over again, okay? So you have to become comfortable. Number 3, How many guys don't want to write, don't want to be audio, but you're like, I need my own stage to present. Where are my people that need a stage? He needs a stage. All right. You guys, you should start video, okay? Start some kind of vlog. It can be, I don't care if it's Facebook Live, Instagram Lives, YouTube Live, I don't care what it is, but start going live, okay? And it's gonna be scary at first. It's gonna be weird, it's gonna be awkward, but I promise you guys it's worth it. It'll be worth it in 12 months from now when you come back and you're like, oh my gosh, Russell, some weird things happen. I found my voice. Another thing that's amazing about this, when you start doing this, there's a scripture, I believe it's in Luke or in John, where Christ talked a little about this. He said, my sheep will hear my voice and they will come to me, right? And what's interesting, that's an eternal true principle in all things, right? Your people will hear your voice and they will come to you, okay? How many of you guys, in fact, I had Kim and Toby Shell, who aren't here today, but they were in Kenya with us a little while ago. And it's funny because they weren't planning to come to the first Funnel Hacking Live, but they won a 2 Comma Club awards. So like, hey, you should come to get your 2 Comma Club award. They're like, we don't really do events. We're like, dude, we're literally giving you a gold record on stage. You need to come. Like, fine. So they came. And they said when they got there, he said, I felt like it was my family. I felt like I finally belong. And these are my people, right? And they felt that way. How many of you guys felt that way when you came into our world? Right? Like, for me, it's like I started sharing my voice. And the first 5 or 6 years, I didn't share what I was really passionate about. I was sharing like all sorts of stuff because I thought it was cool. And like, that's when I found these customers I didn't like. When I finally was like, screw it, I'm just going to share what I actually am passionate about, what I actually care about. That's when you guys all showed up. Fascinating to me. Okay? So you start sharing it, your people will hear your voice. They will find you, they will come to you, but you have to share your voice. If you don't put it out there, no one's gonna find you. You have to be willing to do that, okay? They will magnetically become attracted to it, and the better you get, the more people will come to you. The more consistent you are, the more people will come to you, okay? But you gotta be consistent. All right, that's number 1, documented journey. Step number 2 in this process, called testing your material, okay? 2 months ago, I went on the secret Illuminati men's camp out with all these amazing people. And it was this group, they told us, like, don't tell anyone you're going on this trip. I'm like, really? Like, because I literally document every second of my life somewhere. Like, my wife will think I'm dead or something if I'm not Instagramming every second of this. He's like, no, because like, you can't tell people. And like, so we all show up at the airport, like, it's like 8 of us, we're all twitching, like, and like, can we really not share this? They're like, you got like 8 of the biggest influencers in the world who are like, share it every second. And you said, don't share it. They're like, yeah, we can't share it. I'm like, duh. And finally, like, it's funny, within like 15 minutes to see everybody like Instagram stuff, like, hey, what's up? Like, yeah. Like, I'm such a nerd. If you guys remember Instagram that day, I'm about to get on a helicopter with Tom Billaboo, the founder of Quest Bars. And he's got this bag of Quest chips. And I'm like, Quest has chips. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this dude, like, I'm like totally freaking out, and I'm trying to be all nonchalant as I'm getting on the helicopter with the owner of a $1 billion supplement company. Like, hey man, what's up? And I'm like, I have to document this. Like, so I get my phone out and I have this awkward picture, like, and it's like thin, and I tag like Tom Billaboo, founder of Quest, jumping on a helicopter thing. I tag like, he's not following me, he'll never know. And I was like, such a nerd, right? But like, anyway, where am I going with this? You guys are more and more scared the more you get to know me, huh? This is Russell Unscripted. How many of you, by the way, are coming on the cruise? So fun. You're gonna see a lot more of this there. Anyway, so I met this secret Illuminati group with all these amazing people. We're hanging around a campfire. I thought it was supposed to be a marketing meeting, and we're supposed to talk about marketing. It turns out no one wanted to talk about marketing. They were talking about feelings, and people, like, men were crying, and it was so weird and awkward, and like, I didn't know what to do. And then like, I'm crying, and I'm like, what is happening? I don't know how to connect with this. This is amazing. It was amazing. But finally, in the middle of all this amazingness, we had one marketing principle that Dean Graziosi dropped. I was like, it was amazing. Sitting around the campfire, and he said, you know what's interesting? He said, if you look at the big comedians, right, they get on the big stage and they tell these jokes, and every single joke that they tell lands and they nail, everyone's laughing, and like, man, that guy is so talented. He said, you don't understand is that the way, the path of a comedian, this is what happens. They start their career and they go over to this little dive bar and they write 10 jokes. They stand up, they get the microphone, they're like, okay, and they tell the jokes the very first time. They're awkward, they're nervous, and they tell the 10 jokes, and for the most part, they're bad. And they might get 1 or maybe 2 laughs. They're like, okay, those 2 jokes were good, the other 10 sucked. So they go back home that night, and they're, okay, cool. Delete those 8 jokes. Joke number 1, joke number 2, we're keeping those because they were good. Write 8 new jokes. Write 8 new jokes. They go to the next dive bar, and they test the material again. Okay, joke number 1, boom, nails it. Joke number 2, boom, nails it. Then joke number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and of those next 7, 1 maybe hits. And like, cool, I got 3 jokes. Goes back to the drawing board. Joke 1, joke 2, joke 3. Okay, I need 7 new jokes, right? New 7 new jokes, goes to the next dive bar. Boom, nails it, boom, nails it, boom, nails it. Fail, 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 boom, nails it, boom, nails it, boom. Comes back, does it again, until finally they get the spot, they got 10 jokes. They tracks it again, another dive bar, nails it. Every single one's perfect. They got the material. Now they call up the big stage. They get on stage and say, grab the microphone and they start telling the stories. And just every single thing, boom, they nail it. Everyone's laughing, cracking up. Like that person is the funniest human being on earth, right? That's how it works. Okay, so the lesson for you guys is this, right? If you look at how can Russell tell, in fact, this story right now, do you want to hear how that story of the secret Illuminati meeting and the thing? So after Dean told me that story, I was like, oh my gosh. And that night I voxed Dave. I'm like, dude, Dave, oh, I told him the story. I totally jacked it up. I kind of got it, and Dave got the gist, and he was excited. I'm like, cool. Then that next morning I woke up, and I was like all still excited. So I got my little app out, I clicked record, and I recorded a podcast where I told that story, right? Then the next 2 days later, I was at Dana Derek's event, Dream 100 Con. I'm standing on stage, and I told that story again. Then the next week, where are we at next? 3 or 4 more times I told that story, and then I told it to you guys today. I've been testing that material. I've been testing that line over and over again. Okay? Now I know how to tell that story. Now I know how to land it. So everyone's like, oh, and you have the aha moment, right? This book, this event, okay? I've been writing this for 6 months, writing the jokes, getting it all lined out, trying to figure it out, doing the doodles, trying to figure the whole thing out. Then I spoke to Dana Derek's Dream 100 Con 2 months ago, whenever that was. Anyone here at that event? That was my first shot testing this material. I tested it. I didn't do the whole 2 days, but I did a 2-hour presentation where I tested a bunch of material. A couple things nailed, a couple things were like people eyes glazed over. I'm like, that was really confusing. Okay, note to self, don't tell that story again. Shift this, change something, tweak some things, and came back. And then I've been testing a lot of these stories in podcasts, in Facebook Lives, in stories, in interviews. I've been testing material, testing it. This whole experience, the next 2 days, is me testing this material before I sit down and start actually writing the book. You guys understand that? Testing material. If you think you're gonna stand up on stage the very first time, give a presentation and crush it, it's not gonna happen, okay? This documentation of your journey is your chance to start testing your material, to tell your stories, to figure it out. What do people respond to? What are they liking? What are they not liking? Did I tell it right? Did I land that joke right? Did I tell the story right? Or are they confused? Did it make sense? How do I simplify this? Okay? That's the process you have to learn in this journey to become who you need to be to serve the people you're trying to serve. Does that make sense? Okay, it's testing your material, okay? And you're testing it all the time, over and over again. How many of you guys have heard my potato gun story more than once? More than twice? 3 times, 4, 5, anyway, yeah, it's bad, right? Imagine me, I've heard it billions of times. I hate that story. I'm like, oh, I gotta tell this story again. Okay, this is what's hard though. Your audience, you will get sick of your stories way before your audience does. They should understand. You're back, how am I going to tell you? I already told that story. To who? To the 8 people who were following you a year ago? Tell it again. No one's ever heard that story before. Tell it again. No one's ever heard that story. Even if they have heard it, the second time it might resonate different. The second time they might be in a different state in their life where it can actually affect them this time. The second time, the third time, the fourth time, the 5th time. Okay? Don't be afraid to do it. You have to keep opening your mouth, keep putting it out there, and you become more comfortable. You get better at doing it. More people will come into your world, and keep telling the story, keep telling the story. Okay? Half of you guys, in fact, this is one of the points I'm going to coach Nick on tonight when he comes back, is keep telling the story. He told the story initially the first time I heard it. I haven't heard him talk about it again. Tell your story more often. Tell it again and again and again until you are nauseated and sick about it, because that's about the time your audience is going to be like, oh, this makes sense. Okay? So you're documenting the journey, telling your stories, testing your material, doing it over and over again. If you do this for a year, by the time it's done, you will understand, you will find your voice. You'll understand how to actually get the results. People will have a path to watch. Your material will be good. You know how to tell your stories. Amazing things will happen from this process. Okay, and then number 3 is during this process, you are finding your hooks. Okay? Probably one of the best case studies to share of this one was Anthony D. Clementi. When he first came out with the Biohacking Secrets book, or the Biohacker's Guide to, that book, right? And John was running buying ads and was kind of doing okay, but not having a lot of success. And we're like, what do we do? And I said, okay, Anthony, what I want you to do is, this book has got like 5,000 biohacks in there. Every single day, pick a biohack, show it, and then tell people to buy your book. Just do a Facebook Live every single day. And I was like, do the weird stuff too, like the lasers in your nose and your ears and like the glowing rooms and all the weird stuff. The weirder, the better. So he's like, all right. And he said, how long do I need to do that? I said, every day until forever. He's like, you serious? I'm like, oh yeah, only if you want money though. If you don't want money, you can stop anytime you want. But if you want to change the world and make a lot of money, do it every single day until I tell you to stop. He's like, you're serious? I'm like, yeah. Like, I've been doing this 15 years now and I'm not stopped. Like, okay, as soon as you're bored and are tired of the impact and tired of the income, then you can stop. Until then, like, this is your job. This is your role. This is what you do for a living, right? So I said, okay, every single day. So he's like, okay. So the first one he gets on, he gets these like glasses that shine lights in your eyes and glow green. He's like, hey, I'm Anthony D. Clementi, blah, blah, blah. And he's talking about this thing and like, you should get my book. This is a really cool biohack. Okay. Did it on his fan page. His fan page at the time had 3 fans, him, his mom, and me. All 3 of us saw it. Nobody bought the book. He's like, this isn't going to work. I'm like, do it again. Find your voice. Do the next one. So he did the next one. He did some other weird thing in a cryo sauna. Nothing happened. Did the next one. Did the next one. Did the next one. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, all the way to day 11. I think it was day 11. He was sitting there in his kitchen. He's like, I don't want to do another stupid video for freaking Russell. Hashtag do what Russell says. Yeah, right. This is horrible, right? And then he's like, you know what? I'm just going to do something easy. I'm going to teach people how to biohack their vegetables. So he gets a pan out and he's like, hey, how to biohack your vegetables. He's like, literally what you do is you get butter, organic grass-fed butter, and you like put it in the pan, and then you put your vegetables and you cook it in grass-fed butter. That's how you biohack your vegetables. If you want more biohacks like this, go buy my book. Put it out there. I think John spent 10, usually like we test something, we put like $5 or $10 in ads to see if anyone did any traction. It wasn't anything. And for some reason, that video, that hook, for some reason, how to biohack your vegetables was a hook. Then we threw that into the red ocean, right? Back here. We threw that hook into the red ocean. And for some reason, people grabbed onto it. And he targeted Dave Asprey's audience. He targeted other people, like targeted all the different people who might like that. And that video ended up getting over 1 million views, sold thousands and thousands of copies of his book, built his fan page. And he's like, this is amazing. He's like, can I stop doing videos now? I'm like, no, keep doing it. He did the next video and didn't work. Next video didn't work. Next video didn't work. Next video didn't work. Next one, boom, that one worked. 3 million views. Next video didn't work, didn't work, didn't work, didn't work. Boom, blew up again. What he was doing in this process, he's testing hooks. We have no idea what is going to get these people to, what's going to hook them, what's going to grab them. Okay? And so what we do is we try to figure out, okay, instead of like testing a bunch of stuff, I'm going to make the perfect hook. We spend all the time designing it and choreographing and make it perfect, and we put all of our time and our energy, our effort in this thing, and then we throw it out into the market, and then nobody bites. We're like, funnels are a scam. They don't work. I'm going back to my job, right? It's like, dude, you tested one hook. We have no idea, right? The success doesn't come from testing the perfect hook. The success comes from throwing thousands and thousands of hooks in the water and saying, what's going to work, what's going to work, what's going to work, what's going to work. Boom, that worked. Run with it. Test the next thing. Boom, boom. We're testing hooks, testing hooks, testing hooks. Okay? I'm testing hooks like crazy all the time, over and over and over, because I have no idea what's going to work. And the ones that work, then we run deep into them. Okay? And so that's what Anthony's doing. That's what this whole process is for. Okay? Even if you have nothing to sell yet, I'm testing my hooks. Which ones do people respond to? Which ones do when I do an episode, I get people messaging like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. That's when I know the hook worked, right? I did this one episode on like why entrepreneurs suck at vacations. It was a podcast, right? Because I was about to go on vacation. I was angry. I'm like, I don't want to go on vacation. I want to like work. And my wife doesn't understand because she thinks it's like this gift to me. I'm like, the gift would be for you to allow me to stay at home working. This doesn't make any sense. Like, this is a gift for you, not for me. But I have to go because I love her. Oh, and like I'm struggling, right? And so I'm in my car venting on the way to work. How many of you guys remember that episode? Oh, I'm glad she doesn't listen to my podcast. Anyway, so I'm venting about how entrepreneurs suck at vacations. Man, and then as I'm going on vacation, I'm flying, and everywhere that people can contact me is blowing up. Instagram, Facebook, all these places like, dude, oh my gosh, I feel the same way. I'm the same way. I'm like blowing up. I'm like, we hit it. Like I hit a nerve with that one. Like that was something that that was the right hook that connected people. So then I'm in Hawaii. I'm like, hey, hon, do you mind if I make a video? Because I have to do something. I'm like freaking out. She's like, oh yeah, you can make a video. I'm like, sweet. So I'm like out there. Brent was there at the time. And I like having the pad. I'm writing out a whole script for this thing. And then we're like, we didn't have a teleprompter. We had nothing. So I had a piece of paper like stapled to a tree, and Brent's holding the thing. And I'm like pitching this thing, and I'm doing it. And I sent it to Kevin. He edits it. And we like make this video. We put it out there. And it was a good hook, and it blew up and did really good, right? But I'm always testing the hooks to find out what works, right? Because it's rarely the things that we think are going to be the ones that hit. Most times it's stuff that you like probably wouldn't do, or the things you're vulnerable with. Like, do you think Natalie Hodson was like, oh my gosh, I peed my pants. This is amazing. I'm going to make so much money. No, right? But she's like, I wonder, maybe let's throw out a hook. Oh my gosh, that was the one. Who knew? And that wasn't her first hook. She tried thing after thing after thing after thing after thing before. She tried a lot of things after they haven't hit as big, right? But you never know. It's just like it's consistently putting out hooks to find out what the market actually wants. Our biggest problem as entrepreneurs is we have ideas for things, we become obsessed with them, and we try to shove it down the throat of our market, as opposed to finding out what the market actually wants. So I'm just throwing out hooks, trying to figure out what you guys want. As soon as you let me know, boom, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like it's on. It's on like Donkey Kong, right? The 30-day challenge, that funnel I thought was gonna, how many of you saw the 30days.com challenge, the whole funnel? Like I thought maybe we would sell, Man, I think our goal initially going was like 2,000 copies of the book. We sold 7,500. That funneled $1.2 million on a free event with a $100 book ups. Like, it was insane. Like, that one worked, right? We have 7,500 people going through this challenge right now. Like, okay, we're just gonna do a lot more of that every single day for forever. I'll show you guys our value ladder tomorrow, but it's shifted. Like, that is now the focal point of all of our value ladder. Everything we're doing now is based on that because that hook worked, right? Now we know, like, okay, let's go deep as we can possibly go, right? So when you're finding a hook, then you're going with it. By the way, I'm also always looking, one of the reasons why I'm doing this whole Dream 100 thing, listening to podcasts and all these things and watching people, is I'm looking what hooks they're throwing out there as well, what things are resonating, right? Sometimes I'll see a hook that's thrown out there and I'm like, man, that was really good. And I'll see it and I'm like, oh my gosh, that person got blah, how many views? Like, and this morning, I was on my phone this morning going through, and Prince EA, how many of you guys follow Prince EA? Amazing dude, and he had this video that he just launched, and it was talking about Jim Carrey like a week or two ago in the news, was doing this crazy stuff, and anyway, he does this video. It was like Jim Carrey is going crazy, and him saying like, Jim's not crazy, this is why, and there's this thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, and this whole like side-by-side video of the event happening right now, and him talking about it. I think the video's got like, I don't know, 20 or 30 million views at this, like, it's crazy, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, he's not my direct market, but like, could I somehow tell a story about Jim Carrey? Because apparently that hook just worked right now. Maybe I could make something based on that as well, right? So I'm looking at other hooks, things that people are using. I'm like, and this gives you ideas for the hooks you can be using, right? All of us and all these different platforms are throwing out hooks. Every podcast episode, there's a hook someone's throwing out there trying to grab somebody. So I'm looking at those and listening, like, which ones did I want to click on? Which ones I didn't want to click on? Which emails did I click on to read? One of the most fascinating things you can do is go back to your email history and just look through it and look at what emails you opened, and then stop and be like, why did I open on that? What was the hook that got me to open? What'd that subject line say? Every time I send an email out, the first thing I do is I log into my Gmail and I go back like 10 years and I start scrolling through and looking at like the subject lines that got me to open 10 years ago. I'm like, that was a really good one. I'm just gonna use that, okay? So you're looking for hooks all the time. Okay. You guys having fun? I love this. Okay, where's my little clicker thing? The stage, it's all over the place. Okay, so there you go. There's the doodle we just did. So finding your voice, you guys. How many of you guys will commit to me that you will publish every day for the next 12 months of your life? Those are all the people who love money and impacting and changing the world. Those who are not ready to commit to that, raise your hand yet. All right, Stephen's gonna grab you guys who are not willing to commit yet. He will beat you into submission. All right. Only do it though if you want to change people's lives and make way more money. Otherwise, don't even worry about it. Okay, the Harmon brothers, we're doing the second video with the Harmon brothers right now. The Prospector Part 2. But if you ever notice their videos, they always have a line at the very end that's in every one of their videos, if you study the scripts, that's like a total negative qualifier, like if you hate money, if you hate, there's always something, then don't buy our product. Otherwise, it's just like, anyway, we should do a whole event just dissecting their videos. They're all or nothing things. Okay. Cool, we're actually good on time-ish. All right. Okay, all right, next thing I want to talk about. So I want to go deeper into this whole hook piece. Some of you guys may notice over the since Funnel Hacking Live till now, there's been a thing that I've been going deep on over and over and over and over and over again. In fact, right now we're actually doing a rewrite of the Expert Secrets book to include this in the beginning because it's such a key integral piece that I feel like I missed when we did the book the first time that I want to make sure it's in there. I know some of you guys have heard me talk about this, but I'm going to go through it again and again and again because it's the foundation that I think some people are struggling with. So the concept is this: the hook, the story, and the offer. One of the reasons why some of you guys are struggling is because you haven't figured this piece out yet. So I want to dissect all the different pieces of it because these three things are used everywhere. They are used in the funnels. They are used on the sales page, right? Funnels are .com secrets. Sales pages are expert secrets, but in traffic they're used as well, okay? Hook, story, and offer is more important here than anywhere. So I'm gonna talk about it from a high level, but then we need to understand this because as I dig deeper into like, how do we get that person who's scrolling to stop and click on my ad and come into my funnels, right? It's all about this: hook, story, offer, hook, story, offer, hook, story, offer, okay? All right, so first thing I want to talk about, really this: hook, story, offer. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is one of the biggest problems a lot of you guys are having is you're putting all your eggs into one basket of like, I'm going to sell this thing. I know what I'm going to sell, and this is the thing, right? And what we have to become better at doing is really having, like, it comes down to, again, like understanding that it's not what we want to sell. It's like, what does the market actually want? I'm right, potential products. Okay, so what's the difference between a product and an offer? Who out there knows this? If Mr. Stephen Larson hasn't drilled this into your heads enough, then we can do it more. Okay, I'm not gonna run, well, I'll just say it. Okay, so the difference between product. So product is a thing, like a singular thing, right? An offer is you're stacking together multiple things into something amazing, right? So if you look at the way we do everything, in the office we call this a stack slide, but an offer is basically just a whole bunch of products mushed together. Okay, so it's interesting, like, especially the biggest blowback I get from this is definitely in the e-commerce world, where people are like, they read expert secrets, like, oh, expert secrets is for gurus and internet info marketers. It's not for people like me. I'm like, if you think that, you missed the whole point altogether, right? Expert secrets is all about figuring out how do you create an offer, right? An offer is taking it from like, I sell this thing. I sell, what's something we could sell? Let's say I'm an e-commerce person, right? Oh, you guys want that? All right. It's getting real now. Okay, if you guys want that. Okay, so when you have a product, the biggest problem with the singular products, we talked about earlier, was search versus interest, right? A product is a product, it's a commodity, right? And when you're selling a commodity, it's like a race to the bottom, okay? So I'm gonna pick something. I did this exercise in the One Funnel Away Challenge, which is why some of you guys have heard this, and those who haven't heard this yet means you're not doing your homework. Or you didn't sign up for the challenge, which means you didn't respond to one of our offers, which hurts me. I'm trying to make these things amazing for you guys. Okay, so in the challenge I talked about is I wanted to pick a random product that's just like a random product, right? So I thought the product I'm gonna pick is the DVD of the movie, The Greatest Showman. How many of you guys have seen The Greatest Showman? How many of you guys, when I said that, you broke out into song in your head and you were like dancing around? And my wife wants me to dress up like The Greatest Showman at Funnel Hacking Live. She's like, you should do the thing and we'll have like a cape and we'll do this thing. I'm like, no, I will never do that in a million years. She's like, but it'll be so cool. I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna, anyway. So, movie's awesome, right? Now, if you go to Amazon right now and try to buy the DVD Greatest Showman, how much does it cost? Like what, 19, I don't know how much DVDs are nowadays, 20 bucks? 20 bucks, let's say, for a DVD, right? Now, if I wanted to be a guy and I'm like, I'm gonna sell The Greatest Showman, I'm gonna sell it on Amazon, everyone else selling on Amazon, how am I gonna compete? The only way to compete then is to try to make it cheap. Like, well, you're selling for 20, I'll sell for 19. You're like, well, I'll sell for 18, well, I'll do 17, 16, all of a sudden you just race to the bottom, right? And that's how most marketing happens. It's like the worst thing in the world. That's happening when you're selling a product, right? You're taking this thing, it's the Greatest Showman DVD, and you're trying to sell it, okay? So for e-commerce sellers, or for anybody selling anything for any matter, I don't care if you're an affiliate, you're a network marketer, affiliate marketer, if you're a dentist, a chiropractor, like anything, if you understand this principle, the thing you're selling is just one piece. It is a product. And as soon as you shift from being a product to an offer, you switch from being a commodity, where you're fighting on price, so you're becoming an offer, which now you are your own thing. And I can sell you on the perceived value of my offer, right? So if I was gonna do The Greatest Showman, I would take the DVD and say, okay, the first thing you're gonna get when you buy the DVD for me is you're gonna get The Greatest Showman DVD. Everyone else got the same thing, but I'm gonna give you the DVD as well. Now I start thinking like, what are other potential things that someone who bought this DVD would also like? So I start thinking, okay, Greatest Showman, what's Greatest Showman is about? It's about P.T. Barnum. So who's P.T. Barnum? P.T. Barnum was the guy who started Barnum Bailey Circus, a bunch of other things. Like, what do I know about P.T. Barnum? Well, he was an entrepreneur. And now I obviously still entrepreneur. So like, hey, how is that exciting for people? And I look back in time and I found out that P.T. Barnum wrote like 5 or 6 different books about entrepreneurship back in the early 1900s. Is that crazy? Some amazing books, right? So I started looking deeper and I'm like, he wrote, this right here. He wrote 3 or 4 books. This is like book number 1, book number 2, book number 3. Now it's cool because in the early 1900s, pre-1923 means everything he published is actually in the public domain. The copyright laws happened in 1923. So anything published pre-1923 in the United States of America is not subject to copyright law, which means I can take all of P.T. Barnum's books that he wrote and I can take those and I own the rights to them. If you go to Gutenberg.org, everything on Gutenberg.org is in the public domain, which means you can republish without asking anybody ever. Right? So literally I go to Gutenberg.org, I type in P.T. Barnum, and 3 of his books are there, the entire PDF manuscripts. I take those and I can do whatever I want with them. Right? So I can go and get somebody to make an e-cover for it. I can write my own intro for it. I could do a whole bunch of amazing things. I can make they call it a derivative work. Now I got all these things, right? So now I say, look, if you buy The Greatest Showman from me, you'll get The Greatest Showman just like everybody else. But on top of that, I'm gonna give you 3 books that P.T. Barnum wrote, digital books you can put on your Kindle reader, you can read them anytime you want, all about entrepreneurship and growing your company. Is that cool? Then I'm like, cool, now what else can I find out about P.T. Barnum? I'm like, okay, let me think. Let me go to YouTube and search P.T. Barnum. I searched YouTube for P.T. Barnum. What I found is like 5 or 6 amazing videos of people talking about P.T. Barnum, telling his life story, telling his history, talking about what he did and how he did and why he did. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like amazing. These are potential products that are listed in YouTube. So I got the YouTube videos about P.T. Barnum. And I'm like, I wonder if anyone else has talked about P.T. Barnum, other cool stuff. I searched iTunes, I found out there's 5 different podcasts, people who went deep into P.T. Barnum's story, and they're fascinating interviews from people talking about P.T. Barnum. So like, cool, I have these podcasts over here of P.T. Barnum, people talking about P.T. Barnum. Then I start searching Amazon. I found out there was a guy who happened to be one of our friends named Joe Vitale who wrote a book called There's a Customer Born Every Single Minute. How many of you guys got that book in the mail? You're welcome. So I call up Joe Vitale. I'm like, dude, you wrote a book on P.T. Barnum. The movie's huge right now. He's like, I know. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, can I get a copy of the book? I want to like bundle that book in. He's like, sure, you can buy it. Here's my publisher. Get the number. So I call the publisher up. I buy a whole bunch of copies. Now I have a copy of the book, Customer Born Every Single Minute. So when you buy the DVD through me, you get the DVD, plus you get the 3 books, plus you can get the secret vault of YouTube videos with all my favorite videos of people talking about P.T. Barnum, plus secret vault of podcast interviews, plus one of my friends who's the #1 foremost expert on P.T. Barnum wrote an entire book on that. I'll also give you the P.T. Barnum book as well. And I'm like, hey, Joe, a couple other questions. Do you have anything else amazing about P.T. Barnum? Obviously, you did a lot of work when you were studying him. And Joe's like, oh yeah, I actually have this other like PDF I wrote. It's like 30 pages called the 10 Circles of Power. If you want, you can have the rights to the PDF as well and do whatever you want with it. What? Are you serious? Yeah. Okay, cool, because Joe's like, man, this book's awesome. I would love to, like, you can sell it and it's on your platform. More people find out about my book by reading the report. So then Joe gives me the PDF to his book. I throw in the PDF as well. You get the unreleased PDF book called The 10 Rings of Power. And I keep going on and on and on, right? I start thinking like, what are all the potential products I could create? Maybe I watch the DVD and then I'm gonna give my commentary. I'm gonna record an hour-long recording of myself on my phone talking about, after watching the movie, here's all the insights I saw for my specific business, okay? Boom, now there's another part of the offer. It's like Russell's recordings on his thoughts about P.T. Barnum, and throw that in the offer. I can go on and on and on. I can interview Steven. You watched the movie, right? How does P.T. Barnum's story relate back to offer creation? He could tell me, like Julie, how's it work to funnel creation? I can interview her. I can interview John. How's it work based on traffic? I can get 4 or 5 people. How's it work based on systems? James P. Frill, can I interview about how P.T. Barnum's systems would actually work in today's market? He's like, sure, I would love to be on your platform talking about things. Sweet, I get him to do it. Also, I have all these assets, right? All these potential products that come out of this thing that become huge, right? I put them in this offer. Now I can go to Amazon or go to someone else and say, look, you can buy the DVD from so-and-so over here for $20. Mine's I'm actually selling for $2,000. But when you buy it from me, you also get this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And because I'm no longer a commodity, some of you guys will give me $2,000 for that offer, am I right? Okay? Because it's no longer a commodity. I'm able to turn it to an offer, and now I can sell it based on perceived value because I'm the only person that has these other things, right? Nobody else, I'm the only person that can make this offer. So when I break it from a product to an offer, it breaks the bands of being a commodity. Now it becomes something that's unique to me. Only I have it. I'm the only person that has this. You can buy the DVD, like that's a little piece of it in other places, but I'm the only person that has the Greatest Showman offer for entrepreneurs, the bundle, right? And so that's what we're talking about here with offers, right? So you see this on the PowerPoint slides in a perfect webinar. It's like, there it is. It's the offer stack, right? And so what I want you guys doing for yourselves, and you should God, I wish I could spend 6 months just doing the exercise with you guys, but if I was to come to your office right now and you're struggling, I'd be like, okay, what are you selling? And you'd be like, oh, I'm selling this. I'm like, okay, that's a thing. Make one bullet point. That's why you're not making money yet. You've got a thing. Like, what else do your people want? How can you serve them at a higher level? What are the other things? Let's start thinking outside the box, okay? Who could you interview that could provide more value to people? What could you find? What could you create? Like, what are the other things? In fact, man, this is the first time I almost bankrupted my company. Yeah, that's embarrassing. Anyway, first time, everything's collapsing. We're about to be completely broke. And I'm like, screwed. I have no idea what to do. I'm like, nothing we're selling is working anymore. No one wants anything. I have a little list of customers. Like, what do we do? I call a bunch of my friends. We end up in my office. And I sat in front of a whiteboard. I said, okay, what could we actually sell? And we brainstormed for hours. Like, what if we did this? And what if we did this? And how else can we serve them? What else do they want? What else do they need? And we just kept making a list of all this stuff. And eventually, this huge list of all these things we potentially could sell. And I'm like, okay, well, some of these things are crazy. Like, we got ridiculous. Like, you could fly to Russell's house and he'll massage you while you read his book and stuff like that. And like, no one wants that, right? So when I come back later, I'm like, okay, we're not gonna do that one or that one, but oh my gosh, like this one's actually amazing. And like, let's make that part of it. And then let's take this and that'll be part of the offer. Then this and this, let's start breaking down these parts of the offer, okay? I'm gonna be using this board of offers throughout today, okay? Because if you want tomorrow as well. Because if you think about it, like all I'm doing, I'll give you a quick sneak peek for tomorrow. But basically, when I have an ad, on an ad, there's three things that are important: my hook, my story, and my offer, right? I have an ad, I got to hook them, they tell a story, and then they click the offers, like click on this button to get whatever, right? And then they go somewhere. Then they hit a landing page. And on the landing page, I have to do a hook, a story, and offer. So I'm like, hey, so maybe I like click here, and I'm gonna give you this thing. So they click on the button, they go to the page where I give them this thing. It's like, give me your email address, I'll email it to you. Give me your email address, I give them that, boom. Then it comes the next page, it's like, cool, now you've got this. I made a special offer, which is these 5 things. Give me money, and I'll give you this part. And so then, boom, I give them that. And then the next page, the upsell is like, give me money, and I'll give you this, this, and this, and this, right? So I'm taking this big vault of all the different potential products I have, and that's how I'm creating my offers. I'm pulling pieces out of them, I'm using things like that. Okay, I'll show you guys that more. We'll go deeper in tomorrow, but I just want you guys to see where we're going with this. Like, this is insanely important. Tonight in your hotel room, you should be like, what else can I sell them? What else can I sell them? What else? And just keep thinking of how you can create value for your people, and just keep building it, and keep building it, keep building it. We have our next launch, the 10X Secrets launch is coming out. I think we're 2 weeks away from that launch. And this is the question right now. Like, I know we have a 6-hour training of me teaching everybody how we did $3 million in 90 minutes. So I'm like, what else does people need? What else do they need? And we're going in the archives, like everything we ever created. I'm like, oh crap. We did 5 FAT events. At every single FAT event, I literally grabbed someone randomly from the audience, put them up on stage, and I sat there with them, and I had them tell me their stories, and I had them sit down in the audience, and I pretended like I was them and pitched their product for them, and we recorded all of them. So I'm like, holy crap, luckily I documented the journey, because I have all this stuff that's been on the cutting room floor for the last year or two. I'm like, that's actually a really good part of the offer. Like, how many of you guys, after you watch my 6-hour training, would love to see me actually pitch 5 other people's products? One of them was a pregnant woman. I literally became a pregnant woman and pitched their product from stage. And you can watch the entire video of me, first off, asking her the questions I needed to create the webinar. And then I stood there and got in state as a pregnant woman, and I pitched the thing. I sold the crap out of it. It was amazing, right? Who here wanted to buy that thing afterwards? Stephen was like, I'm all in. Yes, he was into it. Anyway, so that was like a part of the offer. And it's like, what else do I have? What else? What are the other things that someone who bought this would be interested in? Like, what are the other things that are like on the cutting room floor, right? And that's what we're looking for. Or like, where did I learn pieces? Like, I learned the stack from Armin Moore. And what if I called Armin and like interviewed him on how he does a stack? Right? I learned trial closes from Ted Thomas. So if I called Ted Thomas and do an interview with him about how he did trial closes, and like find the people who actually taught me the pieces and make that all part of the offer. Now that becomes like this sexy, amazing thing where there's like, I can sell for whatever I want at this point, right? Because I built the value of the offer so high. Okay? But for a lot of you, as you're coming in, you've got like one shot at base. I got one product, let's go for it. And you're like, huh, and it's not working. It's like, dude, you got to test more stuff. You need more products, more things, because I can't create offers. It's just like testing hooks. I don't know what they're going to buy until I try a bunch of things. And so it's like it's this creation of stuff, right? Okay, now a couple levels deeper I'm going here, right? So this is the offer part of it, right? We got offer. Now, for every single offer, if you come backwards to the story, there's multiple stories for every offer, right? It's not singular, okay? So there are different stories. I'm not going to go too deep in it tonight, but if you guys have read the Expert Secrets book, we talk about Epiphany Bridge stories, right? So there's a little Epiphany Bridge gap, right? And so there's multiple stories like this for each hook, right? So for example, if I come back to the Greatest Showman example, right? One story I could tell is like, hey, I took my kids to this movie called The Greatest Showman, and I didn't know what it was about. And as I got in there, I realized it's all about entrepreneurship. And I got all excited. I remember when the movie ended, I opened a Wikipedia, and I was looking up P.T. Barnum. I looked it up, and I started seeing his life and all the stuff he did and the things that I didn't even know about. And I started getting excited. I started researching, and I ended up finding these books he wrote. I found these other things, and it was amazing. I realized he was probably the country's, probably not the first, but probably the biggest entrepreneur of his time. Like, he's like the Elon Musk of the time. And I was like, man, what can I learn from that guy? And I started finding these books. I started reading them, these books that are unpublished that you can't even find anymore anywhere. I started reading them, and it was the most amazing thing in the world as I started realizing that, man, the way that he got the circus to be so big, can I use that same principles in my company myself? In fact, one of the fascinating things I found, have you guys read this part actually in the book? So good. So 2 days before P.T. Barnum died, he wrote his own obituary and published it to all the newspapers. And he was still alive. And they asked him, like, why did you publish your obituary? He's like, oh, I figured the death of a famous man like me might sell some more tickets to the circus. Like, what? Who does that? Isn't that amazing? Like, I love this guy. Like, he's cut from the same thread as me. Like, I love him, right? And because of that, I put together this really special offer because I want you guys to watch the DVD, but that's just scratching the surface. That's Hollywood's rendition. How do you guys know behind the scenes of what actually happened, what he did, what he believed, and how he can implement in our business? Because if you get started right now, you can get the DVD. Plus, I'm going to give you those 5 books. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the video of me explaining to my kids how these things relate back to us as entrepreneurs. Plus, I found this guy who wrote this book, and I go through the offer, right? That's one story, okay? But there's other stories in the offer. I can tell another story. When I first got started online, I remember I bought this course from Mark Joyner. It's called his farewell package. He retired from the internet. And I bought this thing. There was like 20 CDs of him interviewing the top internet marketing people in the industry at the time. And CD number 2 was an interview with a guy named Joe Vitale. And Joe Vitale owns a site called MrFire.com. And I remember I listened to that interview. I loved everything that Joe Vitale said. And I remember afterwards I went to MrFire.com. I'm looking at his site. And when I went to the site, there was a tab that said hire him. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to hire Joe Vitale to do marketing for me. So I click on the tab and I went there and he had his rate sheet. And he was charging $6 per word to write an email. $6 per word, even the little words like and the, $6 per word to write an email. I was like, what? How is that even possible? But I became obsessed with Joe Vitale and I started buying every single thing he had published. I'm like, if he's charging $6 per word, I want to read every single word he's written that I can find. And one of the very first books I bought was a book called There's a Customer Born Every Single Minute. And what's fascinating, this book is actually about about a man named P.T. Barnum. And I remember reading this book and it goes through 10 rings of power about how P.T. Barnum was the world's greatest entrepreneur, and all these different principles, what he did to build up the P.T. Barnum brand and the circus and everything, and then he ties back to how it relates back to us. And I remember buying that book and devouring it, and I loved it, and then I put it on my shelf and I forgot about it for a decade. A decade later, this movie comes out called The Greatest Showman. I didn't know it was a musical, I wouldn't have gone. But my wife tricks me, oh, you should go to this thing. I'm like, oh, whatever. And I take my kids there and all of a sudden they start singing. I'm like, what in the world's happening? But then I saw Wolverine come out. I was like, sweet, Wolverine's gonna come out. He's dancing and I'm even more confused. And then a few minutes into it, all of a sudden I'm like, wait, P.T. Barnum, I remember reading a book by Mr. Fire like 10 years ago. And I start freaking out. I go to Wikipedia and I see the thing and I email Joe Vitale. I'm like, dude, you watched the movie? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh, your book is so relevant right now. He's like, yeah. I'm like, what are you doing with it? He's like, nothing. I'm like, what? Can I buy 600 copies to send to all my top clients? Because that book is insanely good. He's like, yes. And then he's like, oh, by the way, I have this PDF that I wrote that I never published. If you want, you can give them that too. I'm like, are you kidding me? That'd be amazing. Can I interview you about what you learned from back then going through this huge research project? And he was like, yeah. So I put together this offer, I'm going to give you guys a DVD because I'm sure you want that. But second off, I got a copy of There's a Customer Born Every Minute. It's completely out of print right now. It's really hard. In fact, if you go to eBay right now, you can get copies for like $200 or $300. But I actually contacted the publisher. I printed a batch. I have it in my warehouse. You can't get them anywhere else right now. It's hard to buy online. I've got a bunch of those. Plus, I have this unreleased PDF that Joe Vitale actually wrote about it, which is insanely cool. Then on top of that, he let me interview him. Plus, I found 3 of P.T. Barnum's old books. And I build up the offer again, I sell it. Different stories, same offer. I could do another one, another one, another one. Okay? Every offer has multiple stories. Which story is the best one to sell? I don't know. That's why I'm testing my material. I'm seeing what's happening. I'm testing things to find out which one's gonna be the best that's gonna resonate to people. So when I have a shot to stand in front of people and pitch something, I'm leading with the best story. But I don't know that if I'm not publishing, right? Okay, all right, I'm gonna go one level back from that, okay? So every offer has multiple stories. Every story has multiple hooks. You see why it's important we're publishing a lot of crap? Which hook's the right hook? To get them the right story, to get them to want to buy the offer. Okay? I gotta be testing stuff. I'm trying a lot of things. Okay? It was fascinating when we did the video with the Harmon brothers, one of the very first things that they did, because it's a big production. It's $500,000 for them to make a video for you, right? That was back then. It's actually gone up since then. It's crazy. And so we got one shot at making this thing go as big as we can, and you can't launch a viral video and hold on a second, change it, try another one. You got one shot. So it was fascinating. We worked with them. The very first thing they did after we got everything done, they said, we want to test all these hooks before we launch a video. I'm like, how do you do that? And they're like, well, and what they did is a couple things. Number one, they said, there's a lot of different hooks in a thing, right? One hook is like the headline that's going to hook you, right? Another thing is the image. Another thing is the video. There's a lot of different hooks, right? And so what they did is they said, they actually opened a Google Doc with everyone on their team and our team and said, okay, everyone write your best headlines possible. We're like 40 people and they're all writing as many hooks as we can. Had tons of them in there, right? And then they went and wrote these ads that just had the hook of the headline on there, and they drove it to a landing page that said coming soon, and all these hooks, and they started running some traffic to it. They spent, I think, $5 to $10 for every single hook, putting them all through there, and within like a day or two, like these are the 3 headlines that converted the best out of all of those. Just sending it to like a dead page. But we invested like, what, $150, $200? We knew now from that, and then we got closer and closer, like this is the best headline of all the ones we tested. Then we know what images are gonna work the best. So take a whole bunch of images, then another $150, $200 through a bunch of images, and like, boom, this is the image. This headline, this image worked the best. And they had intros. They had like 5 different intros of how to start the video. They had the one of the pretty girl coming in, the gold digger. They had another one. They had a bunch of different ones. We tested little intros of those videos. They saw which one people watched the longest. And then before we launched the video, we knew this is the best headline, this is the best image, and this is the best intro. And then we're gonna do our best shot possible. Okay? And it was fast. We spent probably $500 on this testing process. We got the data back and we went with our best shot. Okay? That's the same thing we're doing as we're publishing every day. We're testing hook after hook after hook. We're testing all these different things. We're testing the stories to figure out what are people resonating with. And then when we have a chance to finally sell something, we're just putting our best effort forward, right? Putting our best shot forward. And so that's kind of how this whole thing works. So the hooks lead to the story and they lead to the offer. So for you guys, as we're thinking through this right now, and this, again, this isn't just creating your product. This is everything from the ad to the click to the landing page to the upsell. Like everything is coming back to initially having this here. You need a palette. You need like a toolkit, I don't know what you call it, but a whole place with all these different products in there, because from there we're testing all these things. We're creating offers and we're putting them all together. Does that make sense? Okay. We are doing pretty good on time. Let me see where I want to go from here. Oh, cool. Actually, I got probably, do you anyone have questions on this? I probably got like 5 to 10 minutes. I can do a couple questions real quick before I move on, if anyone wants a question on this part at all. Unless I was as clear as can be. Does anyone have a question on hook, story, offer before we move on to the last piece here? Right behind you, John.
Is this part of the perfect webinar? Because it looks very familiar with the stuff that you've talked about regarding the perfect webinar.
Good question. This question is this part of the perfect webinar. So, yeah, in fact, like I said, right now we're doing a rewrite of Expert Secrets. This is going to be coming probably earlier in the book. Because the problem I found with Expert Secrets as we rolled it out is people get into it and they get confused because I'm like, there's multiple, like, one thing, 3 secrets, different story, like a whole bunch of stories. But like its core essence initially, like I can just give a hook, tell a story, and sell an offer, right? The perfect webinar is like if we're selling more expensive things, we're trying to build it out, like it becomes, maybe there's a hook, and for us, there's 3 stories, right? Story number 1 to break their beliefs about the vehicle. Story number 2, breaking their internal beliefs. Story number 3, so we're telling multiple stories to be able to knock down the dominoes to make the offer easier to sell. So yes, as it evolves, more stories come in, more things, but from the most foundational standpoint, this is it. If you want like the framework to sell anything, it's like hook, story, offer. And then as the thing you're selling becomes more complex, it's better stories. As more false beliefs come in, it's better stories. There's more stories. Like it keeps adding upon itself. But from the base foundation, like this is the simplest form of how the whole process works. And especially from the traffic side, because you know the intent of this event is the traffic side. Like I'm not like most of my ads, the story's not super complex, right? It's a little quick video or it's a thing like they're shorter, and the offer's like click on my thing, right? Come in here, hook them, tell them a story, click on the thing. And so in that context, it's like the building blocks, the most simple form, but then it gets more complex as you get deeper to like, how do we do the presentation? How do we do, things like that? It gets deeper and deeper. But from the core foundation, that's the process. Good question. Right over here. Oh.
Got it. Okay, so my question is, Steven's got me thinking about the difference between art and science. And Steven talked about that it's science, right? But I have a really hard time figuring out my stories. Do you have any advice on how to find your stories, cultivate them, and the science of finding your stories and telling them in a good way where people can relate to them and they have a purpose?
Yeah, where's Miles at? Is Miles in the room? He may not be here now. Okay, I'm gonna tell you a funny story. So those who know Miles, he came last week, traveled on 2 things with us, and we were sitting there and he was like, you have a story about everything. I was like, I don't know. I'm like, everything's got a story. He's like, no, they don't. And we're sitting there and he had his feet crossed, and you don't have to come on, I'm just telling a story about you. But he's got his feet, I'm telling you a story about your shoes. So he's sitting there and I was like, what's the story about your shoes? He's like, they're just Vans. I'm like, what's the story behind it? He's like, I don't know, I like Vans. I'm like, dude, there's a better story than that. I'm like, you have to remember, like, what is the process of why you bought those? Like, there's something that happened that made you do that, right? And most of us think the story is the thing, but the story is not the thing. The story is everything that happened to you, coming up to you, experiencing and doing the thing. They get to go back in time, and most of us say, there's no story, they're just shoes with a zipper, right? You want to hear my zipper? I can tell you a story of my zipper story. You want to hear this? Okay, here's my story on my shoes. So we were in San Francisco. I bought the, okay, let me go even deeper back. Okay, so 2 funnel hacking lives ago, Bart, you guys know Bart Miller? Bart was like, he joined Inner Circle, and he's like, Russell, you look like a 16-year-old kid. Your shirt's super baggy, and you have t-shirts, and it's really embarrassing, and I can't allow you as a friend to let you step on stage looking like that. And so like, he took me shopping, bought me skinny jeans and weird shirts and all sorts of stuff, and I was like, and I didn't say anything. I spoke, this is 2 funnel hacking lives ago, and afterwards people were like, man, have you lost weight? You look so much better. I'm like, no, but I have skinny jeans on. They're like, whoa, you look, and I was like, weird, anyway. And so Bart's making me dress this way for the last 2 years. And so the other day he sent me these things about, he's like, buy these shoes. And they were like some weird freaky shoes. And I was like, so I bought them. And then the cart next to it was like, people bought this, also bought this. And they were these shoes with the zipper on it. And I was like, those are cool, I think, but I don't really know. I don't know if I trust my judgment, but people bought this, also bought that. So maybe it is. And so I bought it, right? So then the shoes show up and I'm like, these are kind of cool. So I put them on. And then I'd never seen shoes with a zipper on the side. I was like, this is weird. So I zip them up and I'm like, And then we go to San Francisco. I happen to wear them there. So I'm in San Francisco, and we're hanging out with Dan Usher. You guys don't know Dan. He was not here today, but if you watch any of the funnel hacking live promotional videos, him and his team are the ones to do all those, where they're running around the room and do these cool, crazy videos. Blake is on his team running around here with videos. You probably see it. Yeah, that's Blake. So Dan's like the coolest, like artsy guy. He's always got crazy hair and like, dresses all cool. He's like the cool guy all the time. You're just like, man, that guy is so cool. He's like oozing cool, and I don't even know what to do around him. It's awkward. And so we're hanging out talking, and I remember after the 10X event, he was like, we need a shot of you in a helicopter flying over Mandalay Bay. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, we need an establishing shot for the 10X video in a year from now so that they can see you looking over Mandalay Bay, like thoughtful. And then we'll start with that shot, and then we'll zoom into Mandalay Bay where you sell $3 million in 90 minutes. I'm like, you think things through really far out. He's like, yeah, I actually already booked a helicopter. They have a special kind where you can hook a strap on. You like hang out the window of the helicopter, and we'll film you from behind looking at Mandalay Bay. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is insane. And so an hour later, I'm literally in a helicopter, strapped in, sitting out, flying over Mandalay Bay, and I'm freaking out. And I'm getting these pictures. I think I'm so cool. And then after we land, Dan is like all upset. I'm like, what? Did it not come out good? He's like, your shoes, like they suck. I'm like, what? He's like, why would you wear those shoes to fly over Mandalay Bay? I'm like, I didn't even notice my shoes. He's like, you could have had cool shoes. And I was like, all paranoid about my shoes, right? So then fast forward to we're in San Francisco, and we're hanging out with Dan, and we're talking about Caleb Maddox. And it was funny because we're talking about Caleb, and you guys know Caleb. Like, I love Caleb. He's awesome. And we're talking about Caleb, and Dan was, what did he say? Something happened, and Dan's like, we must be successful. I'm like, how can you tell? He's like, well, he wears zippers on his shoes now. Like, you can't get cheap shoes with zippers on them. I'm like, how much do you think zippers shoes cost? He's like, I don't know, $2 or $3 grand. I'm like, really? And he's like, what? He's like, why? I'm like, I look down, I'm like, dude, I have zippers on my shoes. He's like, what? You have zippers on your shoes? How much do you pay for those? I was like, I don't actually know. But people who bought this also bought that, and I had, like, it was this weird thing, right? And so now I have zipper shoes, and that's the whole story behind zipper shoes. So that was my shoes, for crying out loud. How many of you guys can tell? So, all right, so I digress. So I'm sitting there with Miles in the airport, and he's like, you tell stories about everything. Like, what's the story? And I was like, well, tell me the story about your shoes. He's like, there's no story about my shoes. I just like them. I'm like, why do you like them? He's like, I don't know. I just buy them. I'm like, dude, there's a story. He's like, all right, there's a story. I'm like, okay, what is it? I'm like, the key to telling a story is not the thing. It's the journey of how you discovered the thing. He's like, well, a couple years ago, I was like dating this girl. And before I took her on a date, like, I was like, doing the thing where you check them out and try to figure out like what they like. And I noticed every single day she wore Vans. I never had Vans before, but I noticed that she wore Vans every single day. So I was like, man, they must be cool. And she thinks they're cool. So if I had Vans, then I would think they're cool. So I went to the store, and I didn't buy one. I bought 3 pairs of Vans because I was like, I don't know what outfit I'm going to make sure I have because I want to make sure I impress her. So I bought 3 pairs of Vans, and I wore them, and I asked her on a date, and then we both had Vans on. We had this really cool moment. And he's like, but ever since then, I've always thought Vans were cool. In fact, the only shoes that I wear now and the only ones I own are Vans, all because I wanted to impress that girl all those years ago. I was like, dude, now I care about your shoes, right? How many of you guys tonight, when you walk on Miles, would be like, dude, nice Vans, right? Because you care about it. All you guys now are like wondering how much I spent for these zipper shoes. Some of you guys have already Googled it. You're like, how much do those zipper shoes actually cost, Russell? Right? How much? I have no idea. the keys in the story. And then we had someone at the office, Shane, who's doing behind the scenes of all the One Funnel Away stuff. He's going through the training with everybody right now. And he's like, dude, you have stories for everything. And then I was like, you do too, you just don't know how to tell them. He's like, no, I don't. I'm like, what's the story right there? Because he has a fan hooked to his desk. It's really awkward and really loud, and we always tease him. I'm like, what's the story about your fan right there? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, why do you have a fan? He's like, I get hot. I'm like, okay, that's a crappy story. I'm like, there's a story. Why do you have a fan on your desk? Like, think back in your past. There's like, what happened that made you have a fan right now today? And even with all of us teasing you, you still have it hooked there. And he's like, well, oh, I know what happened. He's like, my old job, I would come in every day, I'd be working, and I'd be so hot, I'd be pouring sweat down my face, and I had to like take breaks all the time, go outside to cool off, and my boss got so sick and tired of me taking breaks all the time, he bought me this fan and mounted it to my thing. He said, stop moving, stop leaving your desk, this fan will keep you cool. And he hooked it up, and it was amazing. I kept myself cool, and like this fan, I've taken me from job to job to job, and I never leave without it because I have to have it, otherwise I'm like way less productive because I sweat and I take these breaks all the time, and so now I have this fan. I was like, dude, why didn't you tell us that day number one? We would have stopped teasing you. That's an amazing story. You should have a fan. Don't take breaks, right? It's amazing. But for all of you guys, there's a story. Like, why is Stephen wearing a capitalist pig shirt? There's a story. Why is he wearing this lucky hat? There's a story. You want to know his story? I'll tell you what the story is. How many of you guys want to hear the story? Last year, Funnel Hacking Live, I may butcher this, but I think I'm right. Tony Robbins comes out on stage as a giant, and he's got a lucky hat on. He's bouncing around. And Stephen, like me, has a fat head. Am I right? I can't wear hats. But Tony Robbins comes on stage, and Tony's the only human being who's got a bigger head than me or Stephen combined, right? And he's like, he looks really good in this lucky hat. And then afterwards, Stephen had a chance to talk to him, and he's like, hey, nice hat. And Tony's like, oh yeah, I own equity in the company. And Stephen's like, oh my gosh. And then every day since then, Stephen's worn a lucky hat. Isn't that amazing? Okay. Every single one of you guys, there's a story about why you do what you do. And if I ask you, like, oh, because I like purple shirts. No, you don't. There's a reason why you actually wear a purple shirt. Okay? You just have to get better at like remembering the reason why. Okay? So it's not magic. It's just going back in time and like trying to think through that thing. Okay? It's giving the report of like how you got to the spot. And that's the magic in telling stories. Is just remembering that. Because all of us are like, no one cares about my story. No one cares the fact my boss bought me a fan. No one cares that the girlfriend I was dating at the time liked Vans. No, we do. That's why we care. And if you tell that story, and the next level of that is you start weaving in the emotion of it, right? The coolest thing about human beings is we have this really weird thing called empathy, right? So as I talk to you, you're going to feel, if I do it right, you will feel what I feel, right? So if I'm like, hey, I came to the office today, I was really tired, and then I worked really hard, and then went home, and I was super tired. You're like, okay, why do I care? Or if I'm like, hey, so last night I came in because I'm working on these slides for this event, and I was really excited, and I was kind of stuck on this thing. I couldn't figure out this concept. I knew kind of what it was, but I can't figure it out. So I came in, and we're remodeling our office, so there's no desks and stuff. So I'm on the floor, sitting down, bent over, doodling on these pads for hours. I'm ripping them, I'm doodling them, ripping them, I'm doodling them. I'm having a good time with it, but man, like my back was just like I could feel the pain in my back, and it just hurt, and I got so much tension. I stand up, I had to like stretch, just get my back to hurt, but it hurt so bad, and like it was just painful. I'm sitting there, and I could stretch every 15, 20 minutes, and I sit back down, and I'd work again, I get going, but after a while, I could feel the pain. I would start on the top of my neck, and it would go down towards my feet, and to the point where it got so bad, I had to stop, and I stand up again, I have to stretch again, walk around, and then get back down, sit on the ground, and keep doing that. I could do that for the whole day. So now today, like my back is just like super, super stiff. It's really, really weird. How many of you guys right now is your back kind of like, you're like super conscious of your spine right now? Isn't that weird as humans? So we have to learn is like, as you're talking about the experience, you don't just say, I felt happy, I felt sad. You explain what you're feeling. If I explain like, man, my hands were sweating and like, it was really weird. Like they were red, but like they were cold. You know that feeling, the cold in the backside, but like, it was wet on this side, like warm and wet. It was just really weird feeling. And the more nervous I got, like the more wet it got. But my fingers were like blue and my knuckles were cold. I was just kind of freaking out. And like, how many of you guys are your hands sweating right now? Right? That's what happens with humans. Like we have empathy. So when I talk about experiences, your body will actually experience what I'm explaining. So I'm telling a story. I'm not just like, oh, I was sad. Oh, I was happy. If I was Miles telling this story, I would talk about like, man, I had butterflies in my stomach because it was the first time. And like, I want to ask her a date, but I was nervous. I was excited. And as I was going to the store, I was like, this is embarrassing. I'm even doing this. But I knew that like, if I had that connection point, it wouldn't be awkward the first time we talked, right? Because you know how awkward that is the first time. I'm like, if we both have Vans, maybe it'll make this easier. And as I'm telling the story, you guys are feeling the butterflies with me. You remember the first time you went on a date. Like all these things are happening subconsciously, and you're feeling what I'm feeling. Okay? So when I need to get you to have this epiphany, if I'm taking you on this journey and I'm using those kind of things and explaining how my body is feeling, your body will feel the same things, and you will actually be in the same state I was in when I had my epiphany. And if I do that, you're more likely to have the same epiphany I did. It's not guaranteed, but you're more likely to, if you're in the same state that I was in when I experienced that, you're more likely to experience it as well. Okay, so the story is all about state control. I'm trying to tell you a story that will engage you, that will change your state so you feel the way that I felt as I was experiencing it. And if I can do that, the likelihood is then you're going to have the aha, the epiphany, the same one that I had if we're in that zone. Does that make sense? So those are the things I'm looking for, is figuring out the backstory, telling it. Don't be, and most of us are like, oh, no one wants to hear the story. No one wants to, don't forget about that. Like, tell the story and go deep into it. On your podcast, on your blog, whatever it is you're doing, whatever medium you pick, start practicing. This is what you should be practicing. Telling your story, doing the backstory, going through it. If you need a script, go to Expert Secrets. This is the Epiphany Bird script. We have the process, we have the questions. Just answer the questions, but go into it. Like, what's the backstory? What's the wall you hit? What's the pain? Just tell the process, but telling the story and like actually talking about how you felt, which for us men is really, really difficult. In fact, I had this thing with Dave the other day. Dave's been working really hard on storytelling, but Dave's also like the manliest man ever. Like, he literally, I don't know if you guys knew this, he like had something happen in his back. We had no feelings in his feet for like a year, and he's at my house there lifting weights, being tough, he's running, like all these things, and like eventually I'm like, he's like getting to the point where it's getting worse and worse, so he can barely stand up. I'm like, are you okay? He's like, oh yeah, I feel great. I'm like, I don't think you do. Like, I'm pretty sure you're messed up. And finally with the doctor, and he had like some bone thing growing out, it's like poking into his nerves, and like he can barely feel anything, and like they go in and cut it out and he's feeling better. But like, he's just like I'm tough, I'm fine. And then I'm watching his stories, and one day I messaged him like, Dave, I know why you're struggling with your stories. He's like, why? I'm like, you're too tough. You have to share your feelings. He's like, I'm telling you my feelings. I'm like, I know. If you want people to connect with you, you have to tell them your feelings. Tell them you're in pain. The reason why people connect with me is so I complain about everything. Right? When I come in the office, like, people are gonna know if I'm tired or if I'm sad or if I'm happy or if I'm angry. I'm gonna tell them the reason why, and they're gonna connect with me, and Dave's just gonna walk in all tough and excited, right? Which is fun and exciting, but like, if you want people to connect with you, you gotta tell this, you gotta open up your feelings, which is hard. That's why we're testing this, that's why we're practicing, why we're publishing. We're getting more comfortable sharing it, and you're doing it more often, and you're doing it more often. The more you do it, eventually you realize, oh my gosh, these things I'm so scared about telling people is the exact reason why people are coming to me. Isn't that weird? The stuff that we're so scared of sharing, the stuff that we're vulnerable about, that we don't want to share, the things we don't want to open up, are the exact things that are going to bring our audience to us. Okay? So don't be afraid of it. Nick Bayerly said at the last Inner Circle meeting, he said that your mess becomes your message. And while we're in the middle of the mess, it's like freaky and scary, we don't want to talk about it, but man, that will become your message. The more willing you are to open it up, the more people will come to you, and more people's lives you'll be able to change, right? All right. Okay, I'm going to transition to the last piece here because it's going to tie a lot of these things together, hopefully, and then we'll break for lunch here in a second. All right, hook story offer. So there is the doodle of what we doodled. If you want to take a picture of that. We're going to come back this weekend a lot over the potential products. So I want to make sure you guys are thinking through that. We're not going to take time right now, but start thinking like, what are the different pieces that I could create? What are all the byproducts? A lot of times when we're creating this, it's like you create the thing, but what are the byproducts of the stuff you created, right? Liz Benny, when she launched her first webinar, she was teaching people social media, how to become a social media manager, right? So she created her product, which is a training course on it. And then she's like, what else? Like, what should be all my bonuses? And I was like, well, what's the byproducts of all, like, of what you did? And most people think like, okay, this is gonna be a 6-hour training, this will be a 6-hour, and like you're creating your offer, like just more stuff. Most of your people don't need more stuff. They don't need more training. In fact, one of the biggest things we found about this program when we launched initially, I gave you guys access to everything on planet Earth, right? That's probably the worst thing I could have done. Next year, I guarantee we're cutting out all that crap. We're giving you guys a very simplified path where it's like, you can only listen to this right now, right? Because we're giving people everything. Like, the last thing people need is more stuff, right? And that's a mistake I've made multiple times. And for Liz, she's like, I can do this and that. I'm like, no, don't create another course. I was like, what's the most valuable thing will be the byproducts of what you have created in the process of this thing, right? And the result you're trying to get for people. And she's like, well, as a social media manager, I paid a lawyer like $3,000 to write contracts for me. I was like, that one piece of paper is more valuable than another like 22-hour training to people. Like, I paid a guy $3,000, he wrote a contract, I'll give you my contract, you can use for your clients. Boom. One piece of paper. Super valuable. Robbie Summers and I created a product called High Ticket Secrets back in the day. Okay? It's a $1,000 course. It's 2 pieces of paper. And Robbie talking about the 2 pieces of paper. That's it. $1,000 course, right? Those two pieces of paper are the sales script we use to sell hundreds of millions of dollars of things on the phone. Okay? It doesn't have to be this big thing. It's like the byproduct, what you're doing that's the magic, right? So think about like if you're trying to figure out what products you're creating, it's the byproduct of all the stuff that you're doing, right? Anyway, all right. So the last thing we'll talk about today, just to kind of tie some of these things we've been talking about together, is how do you start growing your show, right? You're publishing, you're putting this show out there. How are you going to start growing it? So I'm just going to show you guys this image here. This is really it, okay? When you start your show, and people ask sometimes, should I do an interview show? Should I just have me talking? How should I do it? And the answer is both. You should be doing both things, and there's a strategy behind all of them, right? I think initially when you first start a podcast or a blog or a Facebook Live, or whatever you're doing, it should be just you. It should be you telling your origin story. It should be you testing your material, you telling stories, you learning these things, like starting there and start doing things. And again, the goal of it at the end is to get some kind of result, right? I'm going to take you on the journey as I try to figure out this thing. Okay, my podcast, the Marketing Secrets thing, is my podcast, my journey of like me starting a software company to making it worth $1 billion, right? This is the journey I'm taking people on, what I'm learning every single step in the phase. Okay, so whatever your result is, that's where you're taking people on this journey, and then you're telling your story, telling your stories, and then you're like, oh my gosh, here's my dream 100. I want to build a relationship with that person. They can help serve my audience. They've got really good stuff that helps as well. Let me bring them on the show. Okay, now I build this connection point with them. I interview them. Right? Now I have this piece. Now what a lot of people do is they interview someone on the show and they don't do anything with it afterwards. Like, cool, I got so-and-so to be on my show, and then they forget about it. Oh, I got so-and-so to be on my show, I forget about it. Okay? If you look at the people that do this very strategically, very, very well, every interview should like dramatically increase your show's following, right? For example, the other day, Mark Joyner, my very first mentor ever, I'm obviously a huge fan of his. I've been following him for years. He posted in his Facebook page like, hey, so-and-so just interviewed me, a cool guy, you should check out my interview. I was like, I haven't listened to an interview from Mark for, probably 5 or 6 years. And so I was like, so I clicked on it, took me over to iTunes, I subscribed to this thing, I found Mark's interview, I listened to it. I listened to 90 minutes of this guy interviewing Mark, or excuse me, 60 minutes of this guy interviewing Mark, and I was like sucked back into Mark Jordan. I loved it. I was like, this guy, like, it was so cool to reconnect with one of my first mentors and hear him talk again. And now I'm subscribed to that guy's podcast. And every single day on my podcast feed, I see the new podcast coming in. Because he interviewed Mark, now I'm listening to his podcast. Never would have before. Never knew who he was from Adam prior to that. But now I'm subscribed to his show. Okay, when Mike Dillard launched the Self-Made Man podcast, he did a really, really good job of this. He was very strategic in who he picked along the thing, right? And it wasn't just like random people. He had like a journey he was taking people on. He's like, who's the first person that my customers need to hear? Who's the second? Who's the third? Who's the fourth? And then he'd interview the person, and it wasn't just interviewed and it followed away. He interviewed him. I know because I got interviewed on the show. He interviewed it, and then afterwards he made this really cool image of like me and him. It was like amazing and really, really good. And he sent it to me and a bunch of like social media links stuff. He's like, here, you don't have to promote this, but if you want to, here's all the assets to promote it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff looks amazing. So I posted it on my Facebook fan page. I posted it on my Instagram. I posted 4 or 5 places, and I just put a bunch of things out there. And he earned his way into my audience. He didn't pay me for that, but he gave me these cool assets. So I put it in, right? So he earned his way in. But the second thing he did is then he took those same assets he created, and then he logged into Instagram, Facebook, every single channel that I'm on, and then he marketed the fact that I was speaking to all of my audiences. Right? And for the next like 2 or 3 weeks, anybody who's a Russell Brunson fan saw me and Mike every single page, and tons of our friends and followers and fans started going to Mike's podcast and subscribing to the Self-Made Man and to hear my podcast, and now they're in the feed, now they're part of the show, and they hear it over and over and over and over again. Okay? So as you're growing the show, you're taking yourself on this journey, and I would strategically do this. Like, I think most of you guys know, like, if you're gonna get this result, what are the steps, right? Like in my world, I know if someone's gonna get a result, first I do, they gotta figure out who's their customer. They gotta figure out what are they selling, and they gotta figure out how to build a funnel and how to do a sales message and how to drive traffic. There's all these pieces in the customer journey, right? So I would figure out, okay, now that I know the different pieces in this customer journey, like I'm gonna talk about this 3 or 4 episodes, and maybe I'm gonna find who's someone that could provide value in that. I'm gonna bring that person in, boom, get the interview, so it helps people who are listening to the interview to be able to like learn that same topic from somebody else. And now I'm gonna take that to leverage it to grow my show. I'm gonna go through the next 3 or 4 episodes of me talking about my thing, and then find the next person that can bring more value to what I'm talking about. Boom, use that to leverage the show and keep doing that. And what's gonna happen is in the interim, I'm gonna build tons of relationships with my Dream 100. I'm gonna get my customers, my clients, and myself faster to our result. And it's gonna grow my show and grow my platform so that at the end of 12 months from now, if you guys have been doing this for 12 months from now, you don't just have this static thing with like 3 followers. You actually have a thing that's thriving, that's growing. You have a following, people who are listening to you or watching you or reading you. You guys understand, like when people are following you in these situations, like you have access to them in their most intimate moments, right? think about a podcast. Like, when do people listen to a podcast? It's like they put it in when they're on the treadmill at the gym. Nothing else happening, they're listening to it. And like, you have full attention of their mind for an hour, right? And they're listening to things. Or they're driving and they're listening. Or they're home in bed and they can't fall asleep and they're listening. You have like full control of their brain. If someone's reading a blog post, it's not like they're doing 20 things at once. You can't do 20 things at once for blog posts. Like, they're there, they get a notification on the app, they stop everything in the world, they stop, and you have their mind share as they're reading the thing, right? Same thing, Facebook Live, it digs up, you pop, like, it's amazing like what people give us their attention to. It's weird now, like, we'll put out a video, and it's maybe a 30-minute video, and then you can watch the back end, like how much view time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that video wasted 40 hours, or excuse me, not 40 hours, 40 years of time were wasted watching this video. If you took it like end to end, all human beings, like in a timeline, it's crazy. And people are giving you that attention. So like this whole world, like traffic, sales, ascension, all these things we're talking about is all based on the attention that your customers are willing to give you. Okay? And so it's like, it's a sacred thing when you start thinking about like how many hours are invested in the stuff you're doing. Like just this room right now, we've been ongoing, how many? Let's say 10 hours today, right? We'll go through it. 10 hours times all your guys' time. Like, how many hours of time did we just invest in this, right? Like, it's a sacred thing. Like, I don't take that lightly. That's why I've been killing myself preparing this stuff for you guys, because I'm like, I don't want to waste anyone's time here. Because if I waste one person's time times how many people we have, 300 people in the room here, that's a lot of time we all wasted, right? And so understand that as you're doing it, it's a huge service what people are giving you their attention, but at the same time, you have a chance to serve them every single time you're doing that, right? And so this is really how you should be looking strategic of growing your show, telling your stories, practicing your hooks, practicing your stories, putting out your things, testing your material, bringing in somebody who can emphasize what you talked about, then going back, doing it, re-bringing it back in. And Julie and I were kind of brainstorming some stuff before. She does this fascinating. This is really cool. Actually, you want to talk about your 12 months topics, things like that? Sure. You got the mic right there. This is how she kind of structured her content, which would fit in this concept very, very similar as well.
Yeah, so for those of you guys who are like, I don't know what to talk about, I can't think of any topics. What I would do is take, let's just say Russell's show, sales funnels. I would first go on a piece of paper and write 12 like subtopics to sales funnels. And so just shout them out. What would they be? Like ads, copy, design, offer creation, traffic, right? Like social media, all the things related to sales funnels. Write 12 topics. Then start with number 1 and write 4 little niche subtopics under that main one. So if you were like, okay, design. So then the 4 would be like, hey, good ad creatives. That would be one little one. Then the second one would be like, oh, the best landing pages. And then the third one would be like, the best sales pages and what have you. The fourth one would be like best e-covers for info products, right? And you write 4 little like niche topics underneath those 12, and now you've got a year's worth of topics for a once-a-week show. And then you take that once-a-week show, you publish it, and then you can, what we call sawdust it, where you take like all the little spin-off things off of it, and those can become Instagram captions, and those can become, Facebook posts and what have you. And there's no reason why you can't have a year's worth of shows in like an hour, and I batch all my content, and I just run through and I like record them all. I do it like Peng Joon style. Is he in the room? Yeah? Oh my God, his funnel hacking presentation was amazing. So anyway, that's how you come up with the topics for shows.
Give a round of applause. And the other thing I would say on top of that is like, it doesn't have to be you every single time, remember? And it can be like, okay, I'm gonna have 4 things and then interview someone, right? And some of you guys are like, I'm gonna do it weekly. Some of you guys are gonna be daily. Some of you guys are gonna be like, I think the more you publish, the better it's gonna be. But some of you guys like, it's gonna be 3 days a week, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, 1 day a week. Like, figure out whatever your schedule is gonna be and then be consistent with it. And be consistent. And like, the biggest thing I would say, let's just say like this week, my topic is gonna be blah. Let's say it's gonna be YouTube ads, right? So it's gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna talk about one strategy one day, and I'm gonna tell a story the next day, another story the next day, another story the next day, and I'm gonna bring on an expert the next day. And like, you see how that works? Like, it gives me 5 or 6 times to test different stories, different material. I'm testing this story one day, this story, this story, this story. I test 5 or 6 stories. I'm like, cool. This week I did 5 or 6 stories all based on that topic. That's the one that nailed it. That's the one that people were like freaking out about. That's when I felt the best when I was doing it. I know that story. Now I'm gonna remember that. Like, every time I got YouTube ads, that's the story I'm gonna tell. Okay? Prior to me telling my potato gun story, I had 5 or 6 different stories I told, right? My first product actually wasn't a potato gun. My very first product was called Zip Brander. I told that story too, and guess what? Didn't land nearly as much as the potato gun. For some reason, people were like, potato guns, are you serious? Like, that was the story that like connected people more. So I'm like, cool, that's the story I'm gonna tell. They're both true stories. I have multiple stories, but that was the one as I was telling it, and that's what I keep telling it over and over again, because I knew that of all the different hooks I tried to convince people of certain things, that's the one that landed the best, right? And it goes over and over and over again. Does that make sense? All right, so there's the path to start growing your guys' show.